There's a list going viral right now about the top 10 rappers who fell off in modern day hip hop music. So we're going to be reacting to every single selection on this list. And if you guys are new to the NFR Plus channel, make sure to hit that subscribe button and tap the notification bell so you do not miss a single video that we upload, because we're uploading every single week here. But let's get into this list. So we have a total of 11 picks, even though it's billed as a top 10 list.
Yeah,
they threw in a bonus one.
What's the bonus?
It's as if like they had to slight Polo G, but let me go through this list. Number 11 is Polo G. Number 10 is Meek Mill. Number 9 is Roddy Ricch. Number 8 is DaBaby. Number 7 is Designer. Number 6 is Lil Pump. Number 5 is Rich Homie Quan. Number 4 is NBA Youngboy. Number 3 is Lil Baby. Number 2 is Quando Rondo. And number 1 is Bobby Shmurda. And I feel like there is obviously a difference between falling off musically and then falling off in terms of your commercial standpoint within the game. But I feel like with a lot of picks on this list, bro, like a lot of it's bullshit, because yes, sure, a lot of these rappers have had a reduction in popularity, but to say that these guys can't go on tour or sell their albums, it's not really that accurate.
No, absolutely
for the most
not.
part.
Yeah,
but
it's not accurate
let's
for the
start
most
off
part.
with the number 1 pick, which is Bobby Shmurda. How do you feel about Bobby being put on there?
No, for sure.
You think he for sure fell off?
I think he fell off. And it's not a slight towards him, but I definitely think that once he got, it was the whole jail situation, obviously, and him coming out. And while people expected maybe a bigger coming out party and for him to have this grand career, it just didn't pan out that way.
Bro, we
And
waited 7 months to get mid.
Absolutely.
That's what ended up happening.
That's what ended up happening. But regardless, though, he had an iconic run in 2014. But for the most part, I just think that when he was released, the music didn't live up to the hype, and it kind of just set everyone off, to be quite honest with you. But regardless, though, it's Bobby Shmurda. He's still a legend for what he did. And I do agree with the placement, though.
I agree with it, but I will say this. I feel like it's almost the community's fault, just because we had placed these unrealistic expectations on him while he was in jail, saying that, oh, when he comes out, he's going to drop hit after hit. He's going to be the face of New York hip hop. He's going to run the New York drill scene. Like, I feel like we have to, as a community, almost take a bit of responsibility for the fall off, because, again, we put him on this high pedestal that was impossible to attain.
I'm happy that he's living his best life, though.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
He's doing his thing.
I'm happy that he's free.
I'll
and
check
that
out
he's
for new music.
I'll listen to a new Bobby Shmurda track, but absolutely. Okay, that one's low-key merited. How about Quando Rondo, right?
I mean,
because me and you are not the biggest Quando Rondo
was
advocates.
Quando Rondo ever like on like that? That's the other thing I want to say, is that he has a big fan base for sure, but compared to like the peak that these other rappers have reached,
yeah,
it almost seems out of place, bro, to be honest with you. But let's talk about Lil Baby, just because, I mean, yes, a lot of his fans are not feeling the new music, but he's still one of the biggest rappers in the world.
Yeah.
What's he doing here?
Yeah, I have no idea. How is Lil Baby falling off?
But I think he's on the path of falling off.
Well, falling off musically is a
Yes,
different
falling
conversation.
off musically.
I think that happened with.
You think it's already happened? It's one
Well,
album.
like, nah.
If we give him that treatment, we would have to give Chance the Rapper that treatment, which
That's
we
very
don't.
true. But it's because you know what Chance the Rapper, where it's going. It was like, in 2022, it was a lead up to that. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
You knew what was happening, the excessive features. It was just absolutely ridiculous. So, I mean, no, you can't say he's fallen off commercially, because if he releases another album, it's for sure doing over 100,000, especially if they stack it up with songs. But musically, like, I've checked out, if I'm being honest.
Yeah,
with you.
bro. The guy just does not seem to want to change up the flow, the song structure.
But when he does do it, it's just that there's nothing really interesting going on. Either he slurs too much with his deliveries, the rapping's off beat, the projects haven't been hitting the same lately. So if I'm being honest with you, maybe if this was a decline in music list, yes, it's merited, but falling off, no way. Let's keep going on with this NBA Youngboy. So what's interesting about NBA Youngboy is that he has been on a dominant run since probably the mid-2010s, but as of late, people feel like not only has he fallen off musically, but the records are just not hitting the same. He doesn't really have anything that's too explosive. The albums aren't memorable, and I'll explain to you why. It's just that recipe of releasing 3 to 4 studio albums every single year, it's going to go so far, right? Because people are going to get exhausted. People don't even know where to go. There's only so much consumption you could give them. So do you agree with the placement on the list?
I don't know. I mean, I feel like NBA Youngboy's kind of in his own world, you know? He's just chilling at the crib in Utah and making music when he feels like it, dropping it when he feels like it. But yeah, I do think it's a case of just like over-exhaustion of the music. And I feel like we are seeing a decline in the album sales because he's dropping too much, and he's not dropping anything that's that memorable. I mean, how many times do you want to hear him shout over a YouTube trap beat before you kind of get tired of hearing it? I mean, not only that, sure, he has his melodic songs where, you know, you have the awkward harmonizing and
or he starts to
whatnot.
go in Cardi's bag, but no.
You know, it's just even like subject matter-wise, how much of the same product do you want to get until, you know, you just want to put it down?
Absolutely. And the mixing and mastering on the projects have been awful as well. So, I mean, you go through these albums and they're not even complete. So, I mean,
It sounds like
when
it
you're pumping,
feels like he's stuck in a loop right now. I feel like that's the best way we could say it.
absolutely. But he still has one of the craziest fan bases in hip hop, though.
He does. But I've given the
Do you
take
have a-
before. I think he's one of the worst mainstream rappers out right now.
I agree with you.
But he's talented,
yeah. So,
even though he's talented.
yeah. So, okay. So, where are we going with this? What
I
are we saying?
think that has he fallen off?
Not yet.
Not yet, but again,
It's
headed
going there.
towards
It's
that path.
going there. It's going there. It's too soon to say.
All right, next up we have Rich Homie Quan. This was an interesting placement because it felt like he was going to conquer hip-hop in like 2013, 2014, 2015 when he was connected to Rich Gang, the tape that he had dropped with Thugger, when he had songs like Flex that were going crazy. It just seemed like Rich Homie Quan was the full package in terms of really being one of the forefront players in that new Atlanta trap scene.
Absolutely. So dynamic as a vocalist as well. Stylistically, it was different than everything that was coming out. But I mean,
He
like,
fell off.
yeah, absolutely. But it's 2024, though. I mean, is this any surprise? Like, why is he making the
I
list
know.
now?
Why is he making the
Well,
list
why-
now?
why
Like,
is it
he's
within
been
this?
having a fall off. You know what I mean? At this
well,
point.
he definitely lost his prominence, but I mean, that's no surprise to anyone. So, I don't know. I think that, like, obviously it's merited, but it's just
bit
kind of
too
awkward.
obvious.
Yeah, it's a bit too obvious and awkward to put into
Yeah.
this list. But let's go into Lil Pump, all right? Because Lil Pumpernickel decided to drop an album last year, and then once I started to hear him go into heavy metal, I'm like, well, there's something off here.
But
you know?
with Pump, it's like, was he ever really on? And
Yes,
if
he was. Yeah,
He had
2017. was
Gucci
great.
Gang, and I love it with
Rose,
Kanye.
Like, ooh, I like it. No,
Yeah,
no.
I-
he had
yeah.
a dominant he had a dominant period. It lasted a year, but regardless, it was still dominant.
I just feel like if we're gonna use a clout rapper, I would have rather have seen like a 6ix9ine or a Smoke Perp fill in this slot because they had like a drastic decline in quality and popularity, whereas Lil Pump, like, you know, he's still performing at festivals, he's still packing out
he's
some
fallen
shows, but he's fallen off.
Yeah, he's
for sure.
absolutely fallen off. This is a valid take. And it's not only that, but it's outside of the top 5, so I understand why they put him there.
Yeah,
Okay, but how about
alright.
Designer? So I feel like every time that there's like the one-hit wonder conversation or the fallen off conversation, Designer slots in perfectly. And I think it's for good reason. I mean, after Panda, Timmy Turner, like, you didn't really get too much after
You
that.
know
You got
why?
up. I
He
mean,
stayed quiet for 7 months after Timmy Turner. I think that was maybe the mistake. Also, you know, he got signed to Good Music, and then nothing came out of that.
they kind of shelved him, low-key.
It was kind of the rumor that like Kanye just signed him so that he can get the Panda song on The Life of Pablo. I don't know if that's entirely true or not. But what I will say is this, is that even when Designer was dropping songs after Timmy Turner, songs like Life or Up, those were bangers, but
They
no
were
one was
bangers.
listening.
Yeah, but I feel
You
in
think he waited too
2024
long?
Yeah, he waited too long. But even at that, what was the longevity? Because people were really enjoying his music because he sounded so similar to Future.
I think that's another problem, is that
Yeah.
he was kind of stuck in Future shadow.
That's the thing. Yeah, because
know?
people were listening to Panda and they thought it was Future at first.
Yeah.
Well, at least the mainstream did. So I mean, listen, I think that this is another obvious one. Just like, why is he here? You know, like we kind of been through this. I mean, if he's not next to like the Lil Babies and NBA Youngboys, but whatever. Let's keep going.
But
on
I
with
will
this.
say this, like, he's trying too hard to bounce back now. Like, I think he just dropped Timmy Turner too.
Yeah,
It's like he's really fishing for a hit, and I wish him the best because he
I
does
hope
have
he gets
talent.
it. I hope he gets a number one. Fuck it.
All right, next up. This is one that is merited, I think. This one makes a lot of sense. It's DaBaby.
Yeah, he's fallen off since
He has
2020.
fallen off.
Since 2020. Yeah.
And he's acknowledged that he kind of made like a meme video talking about like, oh, I fell off, and it's like him lying down on like his driveway or
You
whatever.
know what? I was talking about this with Mark the other day. Look, he had a really nice run.
He had a pretty cool run. 2019, 2020.
Well, before that,
He was that's when he was on top, bro. Those 2 years, like he was having number one hits.
That was DaBaby, Roddy Ricch, and Lil Baby.
The Suge days, like that was different.
Those were, but even the pull-up music days, like I really like those. I really like those years from him. I'm looking back at it. You know what, man? I've always given way too much slack for his music.
And you know what? I don't like that people are saying that like his fall off is a result of like the whole cancel culture thing, because the real reason he's fallen off is that the music's not good anymore.
Yeah, the music is not
That's
good.
really what it is.
No, there's artists that go through cancel culture, quote unquote.
Yeah.
And they're still selling millions of records because the music is absolutely fantastic. So I mean, no, I don't think it's that. But like you said, the studio albums declined, and
He's on Baby too.
Yeah, but he had a hard time adapting as well, and started to go into different areas. And there's only so many Jetson Made It productions that you could listen to before you're like, well, where am I going with this? But
Yeah.
okay, let's keep going on with this. Roddy Ricch, do you think it's too soon, or do you think that you're finally at that point where you're like, well,
You know what though? It's like, again, we kind of have a rule where it's like if it's only one bad album and it hasn't been that much time, it's too difficult to say they've fallen off. But with Roddy Ricch, not that he's dropped two bad albums, he's dropped two forgettable albums back to back. with Live Life Fast and Feed the Streets.
It's hard to find memorable features from him as well. There was a clear decline in sales as well from the first to the second. I don't think he's completely fallen off because people are still checking out for Roddy Ricch. People still consider him a talent. People are still excited to see where he goes with his career, but it's kind
of
at
one point we had made a video saying that he was going to be the face of hip hop. Like, he's really that talented.
Absolutely.
But it just comes down to a point where, you know, the whole reason why he waited so long after Please Excuse Me for Being Antisocial, which was already a questionable decision, but he did it so that he could put in real life experiences into the music, and then you get no maturity, no evolution. I think that's the biggest issue, is that there's no growth from Roddy. And I also feel like he's someone that built up his audience by giving you a lot of like struggle raps and about like sort of trying to make it out. And now he switched that up for like the Rolexes and like the Bentleys, and he doesn't I don't think he understood like how to cater to his community anymore.
I maybe have a good conversation for you. Do you think fans back then thought, okay, how do I explain this?
Yeah.
I feel like Rod Wave is where like Roddy Ricch was supposed to be.
Low key.
If you think about it, Rod Wave sold 150,000 copies last year.
Similar fan base, sort of similar sound as well. It's not a bad claim there.
But you see, you go through that new Rod Wave album, there's a lot more memorable tracks, not filled with bloat. The writing is personal. People are fucking buzzing and hungry for Rod Wave music. That is a crazy overtake, low key.
It's unexpected.
That is a crazy overtake.
It's sad because like you could tell it gets to Roddy. Like, he deactivated his socials at one point because people were kind of roasting him. But like we were saying, I think he is super talented. He is unique as an artist. I think he's fallen off right now, but he could get back on. He hasn't fallen all the way off.
It's kind of like an NBA Youngboy Lil Baby situation.
Yeah, he's hanging on still.
That's a questionable one. How about Meek Mill?
This was interesting.
This one is interesting.
Obviously, one of the most important, you know, rappers of the 2010s decade. While I do feel like Meek Mill has entered a space where he is probably a bit more of a legacy artist, where, you know, he came up as a street rapper, and I feel like a lot of the community that listens to that kind of music, they've gone into other artists for that sort of dosage of street rap.
That's it. Like, I don't think Meek Mill was like falling off. I just think that like he did what he had to do.
He did what he had to do. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like fucking 15 years the guy's like producing music, so I can't say that the guy's fallen off. And even that's why I'm having like these questions with this list, because I see Meek Mill and Quando Rondo on the same list, and I'm like, well,
it is kind of a bullshit list.
It is. Oh, absolutely. There's really no validity to this. And like, what are you even calculating as far as falling off goes? So you have to look at music and sales, obviously, but that's not taken into consideration.
And for Meek Mill, I don't think it really applies in terms of quality. Absolutely. I mean, yes, Expensive Pain wasn't a great album. The Rick Ross collab album wasn't that great either, but
he's a legacy artist. He's a legend.
Yeah,
you can't fucking touch Meek Mill's legacy.
Couldn't Meek Mill fall off? Like,
no, it's never gonna happen.
You know what I mean?
It's like too established. If you get what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, it's like, could a J. Cole ever fall off? No
way. Well, you know? No. Meek Mill's on the same level.
No, he's not a J. Cole level artist.
But he's up there in the echelon of like 2010s artists. So let's keep going on with this. Polo G. So as you said,
pick.
Oh, why the fuck did they slide Polo G? What's wrong?
What's crazy is that like literally all of this guy's albums are double platinum. Literally every single one of them. He's the only rapper that has every one of his albums over 2 billion streams. So from popularity standpoint, you can't even make the argument. Let's take that out of the equation. Now, in terms of quality, I mean, sure, you could argue that maybe he hasn't had the most growth, but he's kind of doing what he's always done.
Yeah.
So can you say he's fallen off? Like,
no, not really. But he's taking long with his new album.
He's taking long. I think
that should have dropped in 2023.
It's been what, like 4?
No, 3 years.
3 years already.
Hall of
That's
Fame.
still a lot for Polo G. That's a lot of years off.
That is a lot of years off, because Hall of Fame dropped in 2021. 2022 would make it 1. 2023 2.
Yeah.
Nah, 2024 this year.
Listen,
it depends what happens this year. Because if he stays silent again, Matt, because I feel like the conversation has toned down with his music, though.
It has.
It has toned down with his music.
It's another case where it's like, no, he's not falling off. No, he's not really dropping bad music, quote unquote, but he needs to go into comeback mode. Like, he needs to remind people that he is sort of one of the main voices for the youth.
Do you feel like that was a big problem with the new generation of rappers that were coming through, that they didn't have necessarily the material to sustain them over years?
But Polo G kind of did, though, because like that's what I like about him, is that he sort of bridged the gap between the old heads and the new generation, where it's like, let me bring you trap music, but also a conscious side to myself. So he's done good at bridging that gap, but I do feel like...
No, but just not enough material, or let's say a consistency plan to be able to be like, well, example, like Tyler with a 2-year rule, or Drake's effect where he's dropping every single year. J. Cole, when he goes silent, he's one of the most prominent feature artists every single year. Kendrick took a 5-year hiatus, but before that, he was dropping practically every single year, and he was doing projects with other people. So, I mean, that's the problem, is that like you go too silent and...
it's problematic for
But
young artists. It is, yeah.
But not only that, but not if you go too silent. But even if you're releasing those features or like those sub projects that are not necessarily the big grand studio album, if the quality is not going to create noise within the community, then you're losing years. You know, and everyone has an hourglass, right? Everyone has a clock.
It's true.
So you run down your time, and then that's what happens. That's what I feel like is happening with Lil Baby, NBA Youngboy, Polo G, Roddy Ricch, DaBaby. It's just like those guys that really had like everyone in a chokehold from like that 2018 to let's say 2021. A lot of things happened in the mix. Either if it was bad albums or too many features, oversaturation. You can't recapture that. You know, there's a cap.
There is. But yeah, I do think that without a doubt, artists that are still developing, artists that don't have, you know, the ability to sell out arenas yet and that are still really cultivating and building that fan base, you need to be more consistent with the drops. You can't be taking 3 to 4 years off, especially when you're not making music that's too substantive. Just because people's attention spans, especially for certain types of styles of hip hop, it's here one day, it's gone the next.
Yeah, they're gonna find someone
if you
else
don't have
to
a
throw
message
in the
to hold
car.
on
Yeah,
to,
they're
bro.
gonna find someone else to party to. They're gonna find all these types of different things.
Absolutely. But yeah, overall, my thoughts on this list, as I've said,
Throw it away.
Throw it away, bro. It's not really a good list. There's some agreeable picks, but even the agreeable ones are ones that like we've known about for years at this point. But guys, let us know down in the comments, do you agree or disagree with this list? What did you think of our takes when it comes to this list? And what other top 10 lists should we react to in a future video? Thank you guys so much for sticking all the way up until the end of the video. Smash that subscribe button if it was your first time watching. And as we mentioned, expect new episodes weekly. Thank you guys, and we'll see you soon. Peace.